Welkom Thijs Waardenburg en Niels van Huizen. Heel fijn dat jullie ook bij ons in de livestream willen komen vertellen over jullie onderzoek. Thijs, jij bent onderzoeker bij de Han. En Niels, jij bent onderzoeker bij de Universiteit van Twente. Ik realiseer me nu dat ik jullie in het Nederlands aankondig, maar dat jullie in het Engels gaan presenteren.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's true.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for your invitation to this wonderful event. Well, in this presentation, we would like to take the opportunity to tell you something more about the Design Your Life project, which is in essence a project in which we try to promote user-initiated design for young autistic adults. So to introduce the topic for today's presentation, I would like to start with a very small anecdote. So suppose that I'm in need of a new alarm clock and I ask it as a present for Christmas. Eventually I receive two. I receive one from my mother-in-law and I receive one from my good friend. From my mother-in-law I received the alarm clock which is on the left. It's the sonic bomb and it wakes you up in the morning with incredibly loud tunes. Now from my good friend I received the wake-up light. It wakes you up in the morning by gradually getting brighter. Now, both products are successful in the sense that they both wake me up in the morning. However, after a period of time, I start to notice that I only use the wake-up light and I actually get rid or I abandon the sonic bomb. Now, my question to you would be the following. Why would I abandon the sonic bomb? Now, a very blunt and brief answer to this question is the sonic bomb simply provides me with quite an horrific experience in the morning, whereas the wake-up light actually provides me with quite a pleasant experience in the morning. Now, this seems very obvious, but in this presentation we would like to make clear that taking into account one's experience of the product is sometimes neglected in the context of autism and technology. So to bring across this message, this presentation is going to proceed as follows. Firstly, Thijs will tell you more about the context of autism and the concept of independence, after which I will state the main problem that we're trying to address with this project, and I will briefly elaborate, or I should say I will propose the Design Your Life project as the solution to this problem. And here I will also briefly elaborate on 4 design principles that we think are currently central to Design Your Life. After that, Thijs will tell you something more about the different ways we have been developing in visualizing the Design Your Life methodology and how this is anchored in some co-design cases. And we will conclude this presentation by providing you with a very brief summary of what we have been discussing and also mentioning the next steps for our project. And maybe there's still some time for some questions afterwards. So Thijs, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Time is a bit limited, so I cannot dive too deep into the world of autism in too much detail. But really, generally speaking, autism is characterized by social communication and behavioral challenges. And several scientific conceptions are that it is biologically based, it is throughout life, so not only childhood. It occurs at all IQ levels, is universal around the world, and roughly 1 in 100 people have autism worldwide. And this all leads to the fact that adults may experience difficulties with independent living. And although initiatives with assistive technologies seem hopeful, the impact is often still quite limited. And in a minute, Niels will explain a bit more about these technologies. But first, I'd like to discuss the concept of independence with you. And basically, we can split up independence into other concepts. One is the concept of self-direction, which has to do with control. So how much control do I have over my own life? And the other one is self-direction, or self-sufficiency, I must say, which has to do with the ability. So how much can I do by myself, or do I need others with it? And if we place these two concepts on axis, we get a model like this, where you see on the horizontal axis the self-sufficiency scale, and on the vertical axis the self-direction scale. And scientists like these kinds of models because now we can show you also different levels of independence, as is shown here. On the top right you can see the people that are very self-sufficient, but also have a lot of control in their lives, are really self-directed, as this happy lady on the photo shows you. On the top left you see people like my father, who is in a wheelchair, and he needs his wheelchair, and he also needs other people, but he still has a lot of self-control or self-direction in his own life. Contrary to people, for instance, in nursing homes, and I thought about this when the pandemic broke out, where elderly people in nursing homes were confined in the nursing homes during the lockdown, so they lost control in their lives in a sense. Also, they need quite some help, both in technology and in persons. And on the bottom right we see people that are in need of help but are supposed to be self-sufficient, but lost control in their lives. And these are, to our opinion, the people that are at the doorstep of professional healthcare and are in need of help. So in this professional healthcare settings, of course, we try to help these people to become more independent again, so to say. And now that I've discussed the concepts of autism and independence, Niels will tell a bit more about technology.
Yeah, so indeed, in recent years, assistive technologies have increasingly been proposed to support autistic individuals in reaching this state of independence. It is believed that technologies as such, which are frequently referred to as e-health, have the potential to provide autistic individuals with more self-control in daily life. Now, examples of such assistive technologies are mobile phone applications. On the left you can see Rufus. Rufus is a mobile phone application that teaches autistic individuals to express their emotions. And on the right you can see Tessa, and Tessa is sitting with us also here on the couch. Tessa is a social robot that provides daily structure and also makes suggestions for daily activities to undertake. Unfortunately, however, we have to observe that evidence for the effectiveness of exactly these types of technologies remains in short supply. In the words of Frauenberger, Makkeheef and Spiel, the design challenge is too often described in terms of generic functional limitations, and thereby designers severely gloss over the importance of experience that young autistic adults have with the technological artifact. So if we go back all the way to these alarm clocks, it might be that a young autistic individual needs a new alarm clock, they desire the wake-up light, but we give them the sonic bomb, presuming that it will wake them up nevertheless. So what follows is that young autistic individuals might abandon technologies that they think are ineffective, but also disempowering. Now, in response to exactly this research problem, we would like to propose Design Your Life as the or a solution. So in essence, it's a design methodology through which young autistic adults can create their own supportive home environment. And overall, Design Your Life must lead to technologies that are both effective and empowering. So this means that they fit well with the physical and social environment of the young autistic adult, but that they also allow the user to break free from formal therapy structures in as much as this is helpful and also appropriate. Now, currently there are 4 design principles that we think are central and unique to Design Your Life, and I will briefly touch upon each of them. So there's a focus on experience, we promote user-initiated design, we promote action-oriented tinkering, and we promote the use of off-the-shelf technologies. And as I said, I will elaborate on each of them in consecutive order. So firstly, we build upon phenomenology, which is the philosophical study of experience, to comprehend and articulate artistic experiences as valuable input in the design process. So what we have seen with these alarm clocks, we try to analyze an artifact beyond the mere function that has been ascribed to them. We try to understand why they evoke the experience that they do, or why they fail to evoke the experience that they should do. And in this regard, phenomenologists have already emphasized the social, cognitive, historical, and even biological constituents of a user experience. And at Design Your Life, we believe that these constituents must be well understood before a technological solution can become properly embedded in one's home environment, one's life world, we could say. So related to this, we promote user-initiated design. So contrary to most co-design methods where stakeholders do get involved in the design process, we also wish to provide users with the tools, or equip them with the tools to create their own specific solution. We believe that this can help or ensures that the technological artifact truly departs from the lived experience of the user and not from that of an outsider's perspective. So in this regard, we're also thinking about what kinds of tools and instructions Design Your Life should offer to the user. And thirdly, we believe that it would nonetheless be nonsensical trying to articulate a user experience in terms of functional and logical analysis. An experience simply needs to be felt. It needs to be lived through. And the implication of this observation for design should be quite clear. Prototypes need to evolve on stage by acting out future scenarios. And in this way, we can develop and validate prototypes in the context in which they are eventually going to be used. Yeah, and lastly, we promote what we've named here off-the-shelf technologies. From experience, we have understood, or we have, experienced that it can be quite difficult for young artistic individuals to completely come up with a new assistive technology out of nothing. By already introducing existing technologies at the start of the design process, it can become easier to envision the design possibilities. So an off-the-shelf technology could be the starting point of a creative but also conceptual thought process. Now, of course, these principles are anchored in some co-design cases. They co-develop with some co-design cases, and they've helped us to visualize the design methodology. And Thijs will tell you something more about that right now.
Yes. So, and these off-the-shelf technologies can also be TESA, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
It's not only commercial technology that can be supplied to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started our project with 3 pilot case studies where we involved students from the industrial design program of the University of Twente to come up with several ideas how the Design Your Life method could look like. And on the left you see Good Trip, which is designed by Justine together with the client Vincent and his caregiver Bianca. Pseudonyms, by the way. Good Trip helps caregivers and clients to discover possible technological solutions in a playful way. In the middle, we see prompt cards, and prompt cards helps to give prompts, and these cards can be laid out in the living environment of the client to help them to remember what kind of steps they can take in the process to come up with technological solutions. And finally, one of the pilot case studies was performed by Laura van den Berg, who looked at an interactive way, purely digital way, where questions were asked and answered to guide users towards possible solutions. So this gave us the opportunity to gain a lot of insights while working with these duos of clients and caregivers, and to take this into to take this together into one possible solution direction. But all these cases took this process, well-known process by Stanford's D School, where you have these 5 phases of empathize, define, ideate, and prototype and test into account as a basis of the case studies. And we also ask the students to elaborate a bit more on this process, to come up with their own adaptations specifically for our stakeholders, our target groups. And so they came up with several variations of this process. And next to the prototypes that I showed earlier, we also analyzed this process, this underlying process, together with the students and other researchers and the other involved, to see if we can come up with one basic design your life process. And currently we have designed this process where we have not 5 but 6 phases. So next to the test phase we also took an evaluation phase where we evaluate the complete process together with the client and the caregiver. And in the middle, that's also important, an important difference. You see the goal and the product that is being developed. And it's also important to know that it's not only about the product itself, about the technology, but also about the development of the person that uses the technology. So in this way, we developed this process, and I will give the floor to Niels again.
Yeah, now I can provide a conclusion to our presentation. So yeah, in this presentation we've talked about autism and independence, and we've talked about the special role that assistive technologies can have in helping young autistic adults in reaching the state of independence. We've also identified, well, let's say a struggle, the fact that assistive technologies sometimes fail to take into account the experience of autistic young adults. And in response to this problem, we propose Design Your Life, which is in essence a way, well, let's say a user-initiated design process, right, to make sure that these experiences are in fact taken into account. And yeah, so we've talked about the case studies, about the way that we have visualized these processes. And yeah, that's it, I think. Next, oh wait, I have.
You have control.
I have control, perfect.
What are the next steps?
Yeah, exactly. So, of course, we wish to refine our process even further and also validate our findings. So we're going to engage with at least 24 more co-design cases in the following years. Now, the first 12 of these will be designated to, as I said, the further theoretical refinement of Design Your Life, and then in the last 12 co-design cases, we will also try to validate our findings.
So currently we are at the beginning of phase 2. As I explained, we had these pilot cases, but now we took this together with other insights to start phase 2 with 12 case studies where we are going to refine it further.
Exactly, yeah. So we could say it's a sort of research through design kind of thinking, kind of working. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for your attention. So now there's still some time for questions, I think, but also write down our email address and our phone numbers if you have any questions or suggestions. We will happily respond.
Reach out to us, please.
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, it's not easy from the Health Valley stand to give questions to us. People can ask them to me, to Justine van den Berg. I will see them in the dashboard. But we have some time, so you were very effective in your presentation.
Yes,
we have half an hour, so let's use the time. I was wondering, so you did these research with teams with a client who has autism,
yes,
and a caretaker and a researcher. Can you give some examples where they came with? So they did a co-design to develop a product for a question. Can you give some examples what they came up with?
That's a good question. So at the beginning of this project, we didn't have a proper idea of what the toolkit could look like. So we first focused on this process of how it could look like, and not per se on what technology came out of it. So in 2 cases of the 3 cases, we didn't get any technology out of it because still the method was in its early phase and didn't deliver proper insights for actual technologies. In 1 case, we actually did get a technology, and actually it was the wake-up light that Niels also explained as an anecdote for the client that used this method. In another case, there were some ideas for an actual technology, but they weren't realized. And the idea was, in the end, that they thought, well, wouldn't it be great if I had a little voice on my shoulder all the time of my caregiver? And then start thinking, well, that's actually possible with voice messages through WhatsApp or Signal, where you can, well, just send a message to the person.
So that wouldn't be too difficult to make.
No,
If you put an app on my telephone and I have something in my ear, you can say it silence for other people, so that technically it's not a big thing.
For instance, what should I do when I stress out? So and then your caregiver can give some motivating messages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we experience this, I think, quite a lot when we're talking about technology. A lot of people think about high-tech innovation. We are also targeting low-tech innovation, or not even innovation, just low-tech technologies.
What's there? There is a lot of technology
Exactly.
which you can use, which will help this individual.
Exactly, yeah, and just subtle and simple changes can be very effective.
Yes.
If I can give an experience from my own past, I've also worked with a co-design participant, and he had some difficulties waking up in the morning, and he sort of despised his alarm clock, but he needed one. So eventually I was wondering, how did you wake up earlier, because he just moved to an independent apartment, and he told me that his mother always woke him up. So then we thought about, let's get an alarm clock where you can record the voice of your mother. So unfortunately we haven't been able to test it anymore. But
the idea came out of the process. So
Exactly.
if he really wants to use it, it's not such a big step to develop it.
Exactly, yeah. But it could be very effective.
Yeah. So now you continue it. The research process goes to the next step, phase 2. So again, what did you say? 24 couples will continue in the process to see if the design process works to find a solution for the individual person with autism. Probably now the process works. So is there an idea that they will get more products in this phase or not?
Yes,
That's because that's the goal, I think, or not?
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So in the end, the effectiveness, so to say, will be measured by the effectiveness of the technologies, but also this personal development process. So again, I mentioned that earlier. It's not only about designing or developing your own technological solutions, but also about this personal development, and this will show if our idea is indeed effective.
Yeah. And can you give some examples for people who don't know autism very well? What kind of struggles, questions are people looking for? You said structure in waking up at a good time, you go to an independent department, or living independent, how do you say it?
Yeah.
Independent.
Yeah.
So you have to wake up yourself, your mother is not around. Can you give other examples where people are looking for solutions?
So first of all, we should maybe emphasize that it is a very heterogeneous phenomenon. So some autistic individuals might need vastly more support to become independent than others. And of course, different kinds of categories of challenges manifest themselves in different ways. But structure and planning is quite a common challenge. Social organization, reciprocal communication. So I would say those categories are the most important ones.
Yeah, and for instance, day-night rhythm. So again, the alarm clock example is because often they tend to change the day-night rhythms, for instance. So that's also
if you can't get yourself in structure, then it's easy to delay the day and you're living in the night in the end. So it's good to be living in the day again.
Exactly. Yeah. And next to that, there are also all kinds of related problems, comorbid problems, as they call it. So depression or anxiety, eating disorders, so to say. So there are many others. Other things.
So if your research project is in the end, there will be a system, a method, how people with autism can design solutions for their own questions with a caretaker. It's a process they can use to find their own answers with existing technology.
Yes.
That's very nice. I heard about it earlier, and I think it's a very nice method of giving people also some control in research.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
For themselves, because a lot of people with autism are very smart. They know a lot. They really can do the.
And they're really, really creative about their solutions as well. So that's their own specific solutions. So a lot of people are already designing their own solutions. So that's really really cool to see as well.
And this method gives them some structure to have a broad look and see what's your question about and what's in the world at solution.
Yeah, sometimes it's effective just to say that it's allowed to do this. So it's allowed to open up your creative space.
It's a state of empowerment in its own right, I would say. Yeah, and we try to avoid being paternalistic in a certain sense. Yeah.
And is it one of the essences in your methods that they do it together with their caretaker?
Yeah, or at least with someone else, right?
So that there is another person who also has an opinion about the solution.
Yeah, to involve, for example, a supervisor, it can also open your eyes, seeing challenges in a new light. So that's very useful.
But right now we are focusing just also on healthcare professionals. In a professional setting.
Yeah. Because the good thing is when you do it together, you have different opinions, and it prevents you from having a narrow vision.
Exactly.
I thought Tessa is it finished.
Yes.
And if that's the solution, then it's okay. But sometimes it's a pity because there's more in the world than only Tessa. We are very pleased with Tessa.
Definitely,
But Tessa, there are other solutions, and sometimes very easy, simple.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
We're about our half hour. It's already gone. Thank you very much for coming to Arnhem today. Nijmegen today. I say Arnhem. We are in Nijmegen. We were allowed to come to the campus today for this live stream.
Nice.
So it's a very happy group of people here. We can leave our houses again for some nice meetings. Thank you very much for being here, and a lot of success with your research project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.